Ever thought your life was one of those perfectly curated Instagram feeds? That was me, Ava, married to Ethan, the golden boy, in a city that never sleeps, bustling with our high-octane careers. Our life? Picture perfect. Until it wasn't. It started with a whisper of doubt, a niggling feeling that something was off. Ethan was always glued to his phone, his fingers dancing across the screen with a fervor he never had before. Work, he'd say, flashing that disarming smile of his. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the seed of doubt, once planted, grew roots. One evening, as the city hummed below our 27th floor apartment, I found it. The worka was texts, part emojis, midnight whispers with someone who wasn't me. An old flame, reignited in the shadows of our perfect life. My heart raced, my mind a whirlwind of betrayal and disbelief. Hey, you're being paranoid, Ava. Ethan shot back when I confronted him. His words stung, a slap to my already wounded heart. He stood there, in our kitchen, accusing me of overreacting. The audacity. But I wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. I needed proof, something concrete to shove in his face. So, I did what any self-respecting, scorned wife would do. I hired a private investigator. It felt like something out of a movie, me whispering in a dimly lit coffee shop, handing over a picture of Ethan. To give me everything, I said, my voice steady but my hands trembling. The pie delivered. Photographs. Messages. The works. It was all there, in black and white and 100 shades of betrayal. Seeing it laid bare, my perfect life crumbled around me. I was broken, utterly and irrevocably. Confrontation was inevitable. I threw the evidence on the table, watching as Ethan's facade cracked. I'm sorry, he pleaded, his voice laced with remorse. Please, Ava, I can change, But could he? Could we? Sorry wasn't going to cut it. Not this time. The pain he caused, the trust he shattered, it demanded retribution. So, I plotted, my mind racing with schemes to make him feel an ounce of the pain he'd inflicted on me. This was no longer about saving us, it was about salvaging me, my dignity, my worth. As I sat there, in the ruins of our so-called perfect life, I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my power. Ethan had taken something from me, something intangible yet fundamentally mine. I was going to take it back, no matter the cost. My plan took shape in the shadows, fueled by a mix of rage and a newfound determination. Ethan, with his apologies and promises, had no idea what was coming. He thought he could break me, but he was wrong. I was Ava, and I was about to show him exactly what I was made of. The day I decided to freeze our joint assets, the air between us turned icier than the numbers on our bank statements. It felt like flipping a switch, darkening the already gloomy chapter of our marriage. Ethan, once the co-pilot of our shared life, now stood on the opposite side, as financially vulnerable as he left me emotionally barren. Are you serious, Ava? You're really doing this? His disbelief echoed through our now battleground of a living room. His face, once my solace, had become a canvas of desperation and disbelief. Absolutely, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the storm brewing inside me. You played with fire, Ethan. Now you get to feel the burn. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by his sighs of defeat. I watched, a part of me wanting to reach out, to rewind and erase the hurt. But the scars ran too deep, the betrayal too raw. Next, I took the battle public, exposing Ethan's infidelity in a blaze of social media glory and whispered rumors that soon turned into deafening gossip. His reputation, meticulously built over years, crumbled in days. The fallout was immediate. Friends vanished, professional doors slammed shut, and the man who once walked with pride now slunk in shadows. His pleas for reconciliation were as desperate as they were futile. Ava, please, let's fix this. I know I messed up, but this is too much. Too much? The irony, you didn't seem to think so when you shared secrets that weren't yours to share. This is just the beginning, Ethan. It was then that he emerged from the shadows, a figure from Ethan's past, a ghost donning the suit of a successful businessman. He introduced himself simply as Mr. Black, his intentions anything but. Ms. Ava, I've been following your Euro endeavors. Impressive, but you're playing small, he said, his voice smooth, dripping with unspoken promises of power and revenge. And what do you propose? I asked, skepticism and intrigue warring within me. Let me help you destroy Ethan. Not just socially, but obliterate the very foundation of his existence. The offer was tempting, a forbidden fruit promising the sweet taste of vengeance. With Mr. Black's resources, I escalated my crusade against Ethan, targeting not just his social standing but his career. Job opportunities evaporated before his eyes, interviews canceled, contracts terminated. I watched from the shadows as his life, piece by piece, disintegrated. Ethan's downfall was swift. Friends turned foes, colleagues crossed streets to avoid him, and the city that was once his stage became his prison. I watched, a part of me reveling in the justice of it all, another part questioning the cost. As the dust settled, I stood alone in the wreckage of our lives, Ethan's despair a bitter echo in the silence. The victory was Pyrrhic, the taste of revenge ash in my mouth. The shadows that had once concealed my actions now seemed to whisper of the emptiness of my triumph. In this game of revenge, I had imagined myself the queen, commanding the board. But as I gazed upon the desolation I had wrought, I couldn't help but wonder if, in the end, I had become the pawn in a much darker game. The moment I realized I'd gone too far, it wasn't during those late-night stakeouts or even when I watched Ethan's world crumble from the sidelines. No, it hit me like a freight train in the cold, sterile silence of a courtroom, where the only sound louder than the judge's gavel was my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Ethan, shackled and broken, didn't even look my way. Why would he? I'd become the architect of his downfall, a role I embraced with a vengeance that now tasted more like ash than triumph. It all started when my thirst for revenge seemed justifiable, a way to balance the scales after Ethan's betrayal shattered our seemingly perfect life. I'd been meticulous, freezing our joint assets to leave him financially vulnerable and airing his dirty laundry for the world to see. The satisfaction was immediate, watching him squirm, isolated and desperate. But that wasn't enough, not for me. I wanted him to feel the depth of the betrayal I'd felt. When Ethan came to me, begging for a chance to make things right, I turned him away without a flicker of sympathy. I told myself it was justice, but the truth was darker, twisted by my own pain. And then came the offer I should have refused, a chance to deliver the coup de Jarasensi, through a scheme concocted by a mysterious businessman with his own axe to grind against Ethan. I didn't question the morality of it then. I was too blinded by my own vendetta. Together, we orchestrated a nightmare for Ethan, framing him for a crime he didn't commit. The evidence was fabricated with chilling precision, and I watched, a silent accomplice, as Ethan was torn from the life he knew. The trial was a farce, a procession leading to the inevitable guilty verdict that would lock him away, based on lies I helped weave. It was supposed to be the final act of my revenge, a closure to the saga of betrayal and hurt. But sitting in that courtroom, watching Ethan, a man I once vowed to stand by through better or worse, being condemned, something inside me shattered. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. I expected relief, maybe even a twisted sense of satisfaction, but all I felt was a hollow emptiness and a creeping dread that maybe, just maybe, I had become the villain in this story. Ethan's quiet resignation was the loudest accusation of all. He didn't need to say a word. His defeated gaze said everything. I realized then that I hadn't just punished Ethan. I'd lost myself to a vendetta that consumed everything I used to be. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd set out to make Ethan pay for his betrayal, only to betray myself in the process. The businessman's congratulatory smirk outside the courtroom only cemented my regret. I had been a pawn in his game, a game that cost me my soul. I wanted to scream, to tell the world it was all a lie. But the truth was, I was as guilty as Ethan was innocent. My revenge had come full circle, leaving me to navigate the wreckage of two lives, the one I ruined and my own. As I left the courthouse, the weight of my actions settled in, a burden I'd carry for the rest of my life. The quest for vengeance had blinded me to the cost, and now, With the scales tipped irrevocably in the wrong direction, I was left to ponder the price of revenge. It was a lesson learned in the harshest way possible, a reminder that justice and vengeance are not interchangeable, and that in seeking to punish another, we often inflict the greatest damage upon ourselves. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. The morning sun barely crept through the curtains, casting a soft glow on what remained of my life. It was one of those moments where you expect to wake up from a nightmare, only to realize the nightmare is your reality. I sat at the edge of my bed, the silence of the apartment echoing the chaos in my mind. The journey from a wife seeking justice to a woman consumed by vengeance had been swift and merciless, much like the city's unforgiving pace outside my window. The knock on my door was unexpected, a sharp contrast to the monotony of my thoughts. It was Mike, an old friend of Ethan's, someone from a past life it seemed. The look on his face told me this wasn't a casual visit. "Ava, you need to see this," he said, handing me an envelope. The evidence inside was irrefutable, a stark revelation of Ethan's innocence in the very betrayal that had set me on this path of destruction. My hands trembled as I sifted through the photos and messages, each piece a testament to the manipulation I had so blindly embraced. The weight of my actions, fueled by the businessman's deceit, crashed down on me. I had to make things right, but every attempt to reach out, to expose the truth, was thwarted by the very man who had once promised to be my ally in avenging Ethan's supposed betrayal. His influence was a shadow that loomed large, blocking my every move, a reminder of the deal with the devil I had unwittingly made. My desperation led me to the authorities, to anyone who would listen. But the businessman's reach was far and wide. My pleas were met with skepticism, my credibility tarnished by the web of lies I had helped weave. The trial was a blur, a public spectacle that left me acquitted but broken, a hollow victory when the cost was laid bare. Ethan's conviction was the final blow, the irrevocable loss that no amount of remorse could mend. He refused to see me, his silence a louder condemnation than any words could express. I was left to navigate the ruins of my life alone, ostracized by those I had once called friends, haunted by the ghost of the love I had destroyed. In the solitude of my self-made exile, the realization of my folly was a bitter pill. My quest for revenge, once a consuming fire, had left nothing but ashes in its wake. The irony wasn't lost on me. In my pursuit to punish Ethan, I had become the very monster I sought to protect him from. The businessman's machinations had played me like a pawn, his vendetta against Ethan becoming my own, a shared animosity that blinded me to the truth. The city that once held promises of dreams and aspirations now felt like a prison, its towering skyscrapers a constant reminder of my fall from grace. My reflections, once filled with righteous indignation, were now tinged with regret. The cost of my obsession, the price of a vendetta fueled by lies, was a life irrevocably altered, a love lost to the shadows of deceit and revenge. As the chapter of my life with Ethan closed, marred by tragedy and betrayal, the path forward was uncertain. The lessons learned were etched deep in the scars of my heart, a constant reminder of the price of vengeance. The quest for redemption, if such a thing were possible, loomed as my next journey, a chance to find meaning in the ruins of what was once a quest for justice gone awry. But redemption, much like the dawn after the darkest night, felt like a distant dream, a flicker of hope in the vast darkness of my own making. I never thought I'd end up here, huddled in some dingy motel room on the outskirts of nowhere, jumping at every creak and whisper of the wind. It's funny, in a twisted sort of way. Here I am, Ava, once a woman with a life so perfect it made strangers envious, now a fugitive of my own making. It all spiraled out of control so fast. After everything went down, After Ethan, after the trial, after that blasted businessman manipulated me into nearly destroying my own life, I thought I could start over. New city, new me. Right? Wrong. My past clung to me like a shadow, dark and unshakable. Jobs, friends, they vanished the moment my story preceded me. Turns out, the world isn't too keen on hiring a woman who nearly dismantled her husband's life, even as she was acquitted in court. Then came the messages. Anonymous, chilling notes slicked under my door, filling my inbox, each one a reminder that the past isn't done with me. Payback is coming, one read. You can't hide forever, said another. It was clear. Someone was out to get me, and I had a sinking feeling I knew who was behind it. The businessman, the one who'd seemed like my savior when I sought revenge against Ethan, now saw me as a loose end, a liability. It was almost laughable, how quickly allies turn into enemies when their backs are against the wall. I had to disappear, had to shed my old life entirely if I wanted to survive. So, here I am, living off the grid, a ghost among shadows. I've become adept at disguising myself, at blending into the background. Skills I never thought I'd need. Learned from the bitterest teacher of all, experience. But it's not all darkness and running. In this underworld, I found others like me, others who've been wronged by the same man who promised me revenge on a silver platter. Together, we're a motley crew of the betrayed and broken, but there's strength in our shared purpose. We're planning something big, something that will finally put an end to the businessman's reign of manipulation and terror. It's risky, sure, but what do I have left to lose? My name is Ava, and this is my story. A tale of vengeance gone awry, of a life dismantled and slowly, painstakingly pieced back together in the shadows. It's not the life I chose, but it's the life I've made. And as I sit here, plodding in the dim light, I can't help but wonder how it'll all end. Will I find redemption in the ruins of my past, or am I doomed to be haunted by my actions forever? Only time will tell, but for now, I fight on, because that's all I can do. The moment I decided to turn the tables on the man who'd once promised to shield me from the world's darkness, I knew there was no turning back. It wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about survival. My name, once whispered with respect and a hint of envy, had become a cautionary tale. Ava, the woman who dared to challenge the untouchable Ethan and his empire of lies. But as the city's skyline faded in my rearview mirror, a new chapter beckoned. One where I wasn't just a victim of my own vengeance. Moving to a new city was supposed to be a fresh start, but shadows from my past loomed large, turning every hopeful opportunity into a dead end. We've decided to go in a different direction, became the refrain to the soundtrack of my life. My reputation, it seemed, had a longer reach than I'd anticipated. The isolation was suffocating, a stark reminder of the price of my actions. Friends, allies, even acquaintances from my previous life, vanished into the ether, leaving me to navigate this new world alone. It wasn't long before the past came knocking, this time in the form of threatening messages. Each one, more ominous than the last, hinted at retribution for the downfall of Ethan. The fear of being found by those seeking to avenge him was a constant companion, but nothing prepared me for the betrayal of the businessman who'd once been my ally in the shadows. Tie up loose ends, Pete said, and suddenly, I was the loose end. Forced into hiding, I relied on the cunning and resourcefulness that had seen me through my darkest days. The skills I'd honed in my quest for revenge became my lifeline, a means to evade those who wished me harm. It was during this time, hidden away from the world, that I stumbled upon others who had been wronged by the businessman. Together, we formed an unlikely alliance, bound by our shared desire for justice. Our plan was audacious, a series of covert operations designed to dismantle the businessman's criminal empire from within. We gathered evidence, disrupted his operations, and slowly but surely brought light to the darkness he'd spread. The closer we got, the more dangerous our mission became. Retaliation was swift and brutal, culminating in a confrontation that left us battered but not broken. I'll never forget the night we decided to take the fight directly to him. The raid on his headquarters was the culmination of our efforts, a chance to end his reign of terror once and for all. The air was thick with tension as we breached the building, moving with precision towards the heart of his operations. It was there, in the chaos of our final push, that I found myself face to face with the man who'd orchestrated so much pain. The fight was fierce, and I was not left unscathed. Injuries that would leave lasting scars were a small price to pay for the incriminating evidence we secured. It was the key to his undoing, proof of his crimes that would see him behind bars and his empire crumble to dust. Handing over the evidence to the authorities was a moment of bitter triumph. The businessman's arrest marked the end of our mission, but the cost was high. As I watched from the shadows, nursing wounds both physical and emotional, I couldn't help but wonder if the price of my quest for justice was too steep. In the end, it wasn't just about bringing down a criminal, it was about reclaiming my own sense of self. The journey had taken everything from me, but it had also given me a purpose. As the world learned of the businessman's downfall, I knew that my story was far from over. There was still a long road ahead, one filled with challenges and uncertainties, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. The fight had changed me, but it had also shown me the strength I carried within. The world had its own way of flipping the script when you least expected it. My life, once a portrait of marital bliss with Ethan, had spiraled into a saga of betrayal, vengeance, and now, irrevocable loss. The aftermath of my actions left me navigating a labyrinth of guilt and isolation, a stark contrast to the love-filled existence I once cherished. When I first heard of Ethan's release, a sliver of hope pierced my heavy heart. The evidence my unlikely allies and I had unearthed not only dismantled the corrupt empire of the businessman who'd manipulated my quest for revenge, but also cleared Ethan's name. However, that hope was short-lived. Ethan, embittered and scarred by the ordeal, wanted nothing to do with me. My attempts at reconciliation, laden with apologies and offers of restitution, were met with cold rejection. He was on the path to recovery, one that didn't include me. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, but it forced me to confront the magnitude of my actions. In my pursuit of vengeance, I had become the very monster I sought to punish. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had waged war against Ethan for his betrayal, only to betray myself and the values I held dear. With Ethan out of reach and my sense of self in tatters, I redirected my focus toward aiding those who had suffered at the hands of the businessman. It was a hollow attempt to fill the gaping void Ethan's absence had left, to mend the unbridgeable gap between who I was and who I had become. My efforts to fight corruption and injustice, though fulfilling in their own right, couldn't erase the shadows of my past actions. The news of Ethan's untimely death under mysterious circumstances was a devastating blow, deepening my grief and compounding my guilt. It was a cruel twist of fate, a reminder of the cost of my vendetta. Driven by a need for answers and possibly a way to atone for my sins, I delved into the circumstances surrounding his death. The trail hinted at foul play, likely the remnants of the businessman's network seeking revenge. It was a stark reminder that the past never truly dies. It lurks in the shadows, waiting for its moment to strike. The journey to uncover the truth behind Ethan's death was more than a quest for justice. It was a pilgrimage of redemption. Each clue unearthed, each secret revealed, brought me closer to confronting the consequences of my actions. Yet, with every step forward, I was reminded of the chasm between the life I once had and the life I now lived. In the end, my life became a testament to the destructive power of revenge. I dedicated myself to fighting against the corruption and injustice that had ensnared Ethan and me, driven by the memory of the man I loved and the devastation I had wrought. Despite my efforts to make amends, I remained a pariah, isolated in my quest, a tragic figure whose pursuit of retribution had consumed her very being. The story of Ava and Ethan, once a tale of love and partnership, had morphed into a cautionary fable of loss and redemption. My name, Ava, would forever be synonymous with the consequences of vengeance, a reminder of the fine line between justice and retribution. In the end, I was left with nothing but the memories of what could have been and the harsh reality. The new guy started a few weeks back, David or something. He wasn't like the other guys in the office, you know? Suit and tie, always on his phone. Seemed too important for the rest of us. Then, one day at the coffee machine, he actually smiled at me. Not some polite little smile, I mean a real one. Made me feel all fluttery inside, which is ridiculous at my age. Those after-work drinks started innocently enough. A few of us heading to the bar across the street, blowing off steam. But pretty soon, it was just me and David. He'd talk about his big plans, stuff that went way over my head. Made me feel, well, not boring, for once. It felt good to be listened to. Really listened to. It started to get real late. We shouldn't have. But those emails after everyone else left, they weren't about spreadsheets anymore. Stuff about feeling stuck, about my life, things I hadn't even said out loud to myself. He got it, you know? No one's ever gotten me like that. Well, except maybe Michael, way back when. The thing is, Michael stopped getting me a long time ago. One day, he said some dumb thing about my earrings, how they brought out my eyes. I felt myself blush, stupid, since I'm old enough to be his mom. But it had been forever since anyone made me feel like that. Michael never noticed a damn thing. New earrings, new haircut, it didn't matter. The office felt different, little touches in the break room. His hand on my shoulder when we went over reports. Wrong. I knew it was wrong, but it felt so damn good. He looked at me like I was the only woman in the world, like I actually mattered. Made me hate coming home to the same old routine. The kids with their noses in their phones, Michael snoring in front of the TV. It was like I was two people. The sensible Sarah who made dinner and did laundry, and this other Sarah, the one who lit up when David looked her way. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. Okay, so then the whole clothes thing started. Stupid, really, but I found myself digging through my closet, looking for that one skirt that made me feel kinda cute. Lipstick too, hadn't worn that in years. In the bathroom, it took me ages to figure out how to put it on. Felt like a teenager all over again. I started fixing my hair in the mornings instead of just pulling it back. All for him. Pathetic, right? But he noticed. The way he looked at me, it made me feel like I was 20 again. Not some faded mom in sensible shoes. We'd gripe over those terrible office lunches. He'd complain about his wife, how they never talked anymore, how she didn't understand him. Dumb stuff, but it made me feel all sympathetic, you know? Like, here's this successful guy, and even he had problems. I started opening up about Michael, how he was basically a stranger in his own house, always on the road with his trucking job. Felt safer complaining about my life with David, rather than actually looking at the mess it had become. Before I knew it, we were spilling our guts to each other. Dangerous territory, looking back, but it felt good to have someone actually listen to me. The office Christmas party was a blur. Too much cheap wine, too many people saying dumb stuff. Everyone was letting loose, trying to forget it was back to the grindstone come Monday. I found myself cornered by David in the supply closet of all places. He was close, saying all those things about how I deserved better, how he wished things were different. Next thing I knew, we were kissing. It was stupid, reckless, and it felt so damn good. Like someone had finally flipped a switch inside me I'd forgotten even existed. I didn't sleep a wink that night. Michael was snoring beside me, and I was wide awake, feeling like I'd split in two. Guilty Sarah, the good wife, and crazy Sarah, the one who felt alive again after God knows how long. It was a mess swirling in my head, the guilt gnawing at me even while I craved the way David looked at me, a way Michael hadn't in ages. After that, it all went downhill fast. Lunch wasn't lunch anymore. We started sneaking off to some crappy motel during the day. It was exciting, thrilling, and I was sinking deeper and deeper. Started making excuses to not come home, saying I had to work late or grab drinks with the girls. Michael, bless his heart, never suspected a thing. It got to where I couldn't even stand being at home anymore. Everything there felt dull and lifeless. The thing is, I should have known I was caught the moment Michael saw me with that new lipstick on. He even grinned, said, "Looking good there, Sarah. Feeling fancy?" Should have seen the alarm bells, but I was too caught up in my stupid fantasies with David to notice. That pang of guilt, that feeling that I was betraying everyone I cared about. I shoved it down deep. David had a way of making my doubts disappear. Like magic. He'd whisper in those motels that Michael didn't appreciate me, that I deserved someone better. It was like a drug. The way he made me feel wanted again. Soon, The only thing I could think about was getting away, being with David. Everything Michael did started bugging me. The way he slurped his soup, the dumb dad jokes he made. It was like I couldn't even stand him anymore. After all those years together. Wasn't fair to Michael, not at all, but I couldn't help it. I turned into someone I hardly recognized. The kids started noticing, too. Emily, bless her dramatic teenage heart, started throwing a fit every time she wanted to borrow my makeup, as if I had any clue how to use the stuff anymore. I snapped at her, shouted some nonsense about how she was too young, that she needed to focus on school. She stared back at me with this hurt look that twisted something inside me. The guilt would creep in for those few minutes, and then just fade away the moment David texted. Ben wouldn't even look at me anymore, always with those damn headphones on. Jake looked confused, like he couldn't figure out who this angry woman was who used to be his mom. I ruined everything. I hated the person I'd become, the liar, the selfish coward. But it wasn't enough to stop me. I was stuck in some kind of twisted tornado, and I couldn't find a way out. Ben retreated into his room. I'd hear music blasting, those video game sound effects. He didn't want anything to do with me, and honestly, I didn't blame him. Some days, I didn't want anything to do with myself either. David painted these perfect little pictures of what it could be like with him. Trips to the beach, fancy dinners, no screaming teenagers or dirty laundry. It was all lies, but man, those lies sounded good when your life looks like a pile of ashes. One night, Jake caught me sneaking in. He was up late, studying or whatever, and I must have looked a mess hair crazy, makeup smeared. The look on his face was like he'd seen a ghost. I couldn't take it, snapped at him to mind his own business and slammed my bedroom door. It was like all the guilt I'd been pushing down turned to poison, and I just lashed out at the closest person to me. Michael, bless his clueless heart, decided to be all romantic. Planned a whole surprise weekend at that bed and breakfast by the lake. Just like old times, he said with his hopeful look. I felt sick to my stomach, faking a migraine, lying through my teeth as he scrambled for the Tylenol. Sent him off with a kiss on the cheek and a promise to be better by Monday. As soon as the truck rumbled down the driveway, I was texting David. That was when he brought it up, the idea of leaving Michael. Start over. Just you and me, he said. It'll be like a vacation that never ends. The excitement, the pure, stupid excitement I felt was as scary as it was tempting. My whole mind screamed that it was crazy, that I'd ruin everything. But a little voice whispered, why not? I was already so far gone, wasn't I? The answer, the stupid, terrible answer was, yes. Hands were shaking so bad I could barely write. Scrawled the note on a napkin. All kinds of dumb excuses about needing time to think. Needing space lies. All lies. Stuck it to the fridge with a magnet, and grabbed my overnight bag. That bag I'd started keeping in the trunk of my car, packed with clothes, makeup, some cash I'd stashed away. Felt like a criminal, but also free, in a twisted, sick kind of way. Didn't even look back at the house. Couldn't look at the kids. Knew Emily would be home from school soon. Jake probably holed up in his room like Ben. The guilt was a monster clawing at my insides. But that giddy feeling, that lightness, kept me walking right out the front door. That damn feeling that everything would be perfect now, once I was with David. He was my escape, my solution. Of course, it was Emily who found the shrieking, crying, the whole hysterical teenager routine. Honestly, sometimes I forgot how young she still was. Ben, ever the quiet one, just looked at her with these sad eyes. My heart shattered a little more, but the twisted, desperate part of me was already picturing a life without snotty tissues and slammed doors. Michael came home to chaos. Emily shoving the napkin in his face. Jake trying to calm her down. I imagine his tired, confused eyes scanning those few pathetic lines I wrote. That part of me, the tiny shred that still felt like a real person, hoped he'd cry, break down, beg me to come back. Instead, his face went hard, jaw clenched. The yelling started soon after. Not at the kids, not at first. He was out in the yard, roaring into his phone, voice shaking with a fury that scared even me. My turn next. Sarah the traitor, Sarah the coward. He didn't plead, not once. Just raged. Called me names I never thought he even knew. The kids huddled on the couch, sobbing now. I wasn't their mom anymore. I was the monster that broke their world. When I finally got to David's, my bags felt like they weighed a ton. He answered the door, that dazzling smile already in place, until he saw the suitcase. Saw the tear stains and my messed up mascara. That smile slipped a little, replaced by a flash of worry, maybe even a flicker of annoyance. That was the first sign I wasn't walking into paradise. That was when it started to dawn on me that maybe, just maybe, I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. The cracks showed fast in my perfect little fantasy world. David's apartment was messy, clothes everywhere, takeout containers stinking up the place. Just a bachelor pad, he'd say with that smile, but the smile was getting weaker by the day. He started working late, then coming home smelling of women's perfume with lipstick smudged on his collar. Cliché copyright, I know, but damn if it didn't hurt. When I'd confront him, he'd turn it back on me. I wasn't being supportive enough, wasn't making enough of an effort to fit into his lifestyle. The truth was as clear as the mascara streaks on my tear-stained face. I was a liability now, not some exciting secret. But I was trapped. There was nowhere to go, no one to turn to. Clung to his lies like a lifeline. Because what else did I have? Michael got a good lawyer. Sharp, expensive kind I saw on TV shows. Served me those divorce papers quick as a whiplash. The letter was all cold, legal words I barely understood. But the message was clear. He wanted me gone, out of his and the kids' lives for good. Sarah the homewrecker, my own lawyer, some overworked woman with tired eyes, suggested I fight it. Fight for custody, try to rebuild my case. Like that was even possible. I laughed, this bitter, broken sound that startled even myself. Tried calling the kids. Emily hung up the second she heard my voice. Jake didn't even pick up. Ben. I don't even know if he got my texts. My own children, and they were strangers now. The realization hit me like a truck. This wasn't a temporary bump in the road. This was the rest of my life. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone of theirs. I'd miss it all. Because I chose to be selfish. Because I was dumb enough to believe in fairy tales spun by a lying conman. The news got out. Small towns are like that. Everyone whispers. Everyone judges. Lost my job at the office, of course. Used to make eye contact with the girls I'd have drinks with. But they'd look away, pretend I didn't exist. The stares in the grocery store, the way people muttered behind my back. It was like I was wearing a big scarlet letter A for adulterer. I deserved it. Every bit of it. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and it was all the same miserable blur. David's affection was like crumbs tossed to a starving dog, just enough to keep me around, but never enough to feel well, loved, or even wanted. Late nights became his norm, always with some vague excuse about deals and big opportunities. I knew it was a lie. The smell of cheap perfume and liquor that clung to him told the real story. But what could I say? I was stuck. A broken toy he hadn't quite gotten tired of yet. The money, what little I had, started running out. Bills piled up on the kitchen table. Those scary red late notice stamps glaring at me. David would wave them off. All bluster and promises of big payouts coming soon. I started to believe less and less of what he said. Hope was a dangerous thing, and I was running on empty. The earring was the final straw. Cheap, costume jewelry thing. A dangling rhinestone that wasn't even close to my style. Laying right there on the bedroom floor, mocking me. The rage bubbled up so fast it choked me. Not heartbreak, not anymore. It was fury at myself for being such a damn fool. And this desperate surge of needing to do something, anything. When David got home that night, reeking of some dive bar and women's perfume, I didn't cry. Didn't beg like I usually did. I shoved that earring in his face and told him to get out. His eyes widened in surprise, probably shocked that the pathetic woman he'd been using still had a backbone left. He stammered out some pathetic excuse, grabbed a few things, and slammed the door. Relief washed over me, then a crushing wave of loneliness. So much for the happy ending he'd promised. David didn't leave quietly. We screamed at each other. Nasty words I never thought I'd say spewing out. His charming mask fell away, replaced by a sneer. He wasn't some ambitious businessman. He was a cheap crook with nothing but lies to offer. Said I was just a sad, middle-aged woman desperate for attention. that the affair was my fault for being so pathetic. Every word cut deeper, but a part of me knew he was right. I was pathetic. I deserved this, deserved to be alone. My old enemy, the liquor cabinet, started calling my name. Figured a few drinks would numb the pain, shut off the voices in my head telling me what a worthless piece of trash I was. One drink turned into 3, then the whole damn bottle was gone. My fingers fumbled with Michael's number. I hadn't spoken to him in months, not since that awful, rage-filled phone call. The voicemail beep seemed to echo through the empty apartment. I didn't have a speech prepared, nothing but sobs and stuttered apologies. Told him I was sorry, I messed up, I was an idiot. Every pathetic word I could think of. Pitiful, I know. Begging for forgiveness I didn't deserve. The pills were next, rattling in the orange bottle on the counter. Just end it all, that voice whispered. Make the pain stop. I choked down a handful, the bitter taste mixing with the tears. The world was getting fuzzy, which was probably a good thing. I just wanted to sleep, to never wake up. The banging on the door startled me, mumbled something about going away, but it got louder, more frantic. Then came the sirens, the flashing lights. Turned out, concerned neighbors heard the screaming match with David, called the cops. So not only was I a failure, I was now a public spectacle. The police hauled me out in my pajamas, mumbling and half delirious. The paramedics poked and prodded, forcing some nasty liquid down my throat. In the harsh lights of the ambulance, amidst the worried faces of strangers, I felt it all, the shame, the regret, the utter and complete emptiness. I'd hit rock bottom, and there was nowhere left to fall. The hospital was worse than I imagined. Harsh white walls, the smell of disinfectant. It made me sick all over again. Got released after a day, stomach pumped, lectures from the doctors, the whole routine. They sent me home with a warning and a list of therapists I'd never be able to afford. Back in the apartment, the silence was deafening. David's things were gone, of course. Coward took off in the dead of night, probably with the last bit of cash I had hidden away. His parting gift, I guess. Found an empty liquor bottle by the couch, a reminder of my spectacular meltdown. I wanted to throw it against the wall, shatter it in 1,000 pieces, but I didn't even have the energy for that. My phone buzzed, figured it was another, concerned, neighbor. It was my lawyer, voice tight with what she must have thought was sympathy. Michael got sole custody. The judge looked at my little suicide stunt and decided I was an unfit parent. Surprise, surprise. Visitation was limited to a few supervised hours a month. If I jumped through enough hoops and proved I wasn't a complete danger to myself or others, days turned into a blur of sleeping and not sleeping, staring at the ceiling fans spinning endlessly. My phone rang constantly. Those block numbers were likely bill collectors, people I owed money to. Didn't answer. Couldn't face another reminder of my failures. My body ached, my head throbbed, but the worst pain was inside. A hollowness that gnawed at me. Then the eviction notice came, shoved under the door like garbage. Failure to pay, it said in those official, uncaring letters. I didn't have a dime to my name, and who'd rent to a woman like me? The news reports would precede me, the stories whispered behind my back. Sarah the homewrecker, Sarah the loser. There was truly nowhere to go. The old neighborhood felt like a different planet. Nice houses, trimmed lawns, minivans parked in the driveways. Families living normal lives, the kind of life I threw away. On autopilot, I stopped in front of my old house. Our house. The lights were off. New owners must be out of town or something. Boldness born out of desperation, I guess. Got out of the car, walked up to the porch in a daze. Through the living room window, I saw it all. A different couch, a framed picture on the mantelpiece that definitely wasn't mine. Family photos, a smiling woman with 2 boys and a girl. The kids I abandoned. Jake looked almost like a man now. Emily's hair was longer and Ben wasn't hiding behind video games anymore. They looked happy, healthy. That was the worst part. My knees gave out, just sat there on the front steps, sobbing like an idiot. The rain started, soft at first then pounding down. Didn't even care. It mirrored the storm inside me, the realization that this was on me. All of it. Got back in the car, my one pathetic possession, and just drove. No destination, no plan. Ended up sleeping in a Walmart parking lot, the rain drumming on the roof lulling me into a fitful sleep filled with nightmares and whispers of regret. When the dawn broke, gray and bleak like everything else in my life, I knew I'd reached the end of the line. There was nowhere else to fall. News spreads like wildfire in small towns. They all knew what I'd done, who I'd become. Ended up cleaning those same sleazy motel rooms I'd snuck around in with David. Cruel irony, the universe laughing in my face. Sometimes I see the kids. Catch glimpses around town. Jake looks so much like his father. It's like a punch to the gut every time. Emily walks by like I'm a stranger, which I suppose I am. Ben still has those headphones on, shutting out the world and the mother who ruined everything for him. Life's become this gray blur. I exist, but barely. Clean other people's messes. Watch other families live the life I shattered. They whisper about me in the grocery store, the judgment clear in their eyes. They call it a cautionary tale, parents telling their kids,